I'm here at the beautiful and tranquil Oulton Hall on the outskirts of Leeds to speak to one of the last Englishmen to win the Ashes. He's had the honour of coaching his country and remains the only British man to have played and coached in Australian grand final victories. It is, of course, Malcolm Reilly.
I remember you.
Talented.
Competitive.
Tough.
Made my dreams come true.
Masterful.
Fearless.
Proud.
The thrill of them all.
Stubborn.
Resourceful.
The real deal.
I will tell them I remember you.
Hello and welcome to Super League Supermen, and my guest this week, Malcolm Reilly. Malcolm, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Brian.
In the summer era with full-time professional footballers, I'd like you to start off by giving the viewers a bit of an indication as to what rugby league was like for a player back in the 60s and 70s when you maybe had to combine work with playing.
Oh, mate, it was much harder. I would obviously like to have been full-time like the current mob of players are, but, you know, I had various jobs, mechanics job, and then I eventually moved into the mines as a welder fitter, which was a little bit different. But we trained 2 or 3 times a week, and I made a point of doing extra work, particularly aerobic stuff and a bit of strength work, even going back all that time.
Well, you're a man that's famous for his own personal fitness and the fitness of the teams that he coached. But how physical was that mine work, and did any of that ever help you in your rugby league playing career?
Oh, look, it wasn't so bad. In fact, you know, I loved the job, and I think every job I've had since leaving school, going back those days, I just loved it, enjoyed it. I remember one incident. We were changing a gear head down the colliery, down about 300 feet, and sleeping's a sackable offence. And the manager of the pit was also an avid Castleford fan, and Granville Craven was his name, and we were having a break, and which we're entitled to down there, so we got the cap lamps on. I used to turn mine off because I was training pretty hard, and I need every ounce of sleep I could get, and I could go to sleep on a clothesline. I just fell asleep for 10-15 minutes, and in that period he came up and shone his light on me and asked who I was in a really ferocious manner, because it is a sackable offence. And the foreman said, "It's Malcolm." He said, "Leaving where he is, he's got an hard game coming up at the weekend." So, you know, they were pretty passionate, the people in the mines in those days. They were,
and it was particular to Castleford that you were one of their favourite sons, and you started your professional career as a Castleford player. What are your early memories from that Castleford team?
Just fantastic. I was just sort of elated to be involved with the first team. I got involved by accident. You know, I played soccer until I was 19, and the bus didn't turn up for the soccer game, and all my friends were on the rugby coach and asked me to play, and I went to Hunslet and took part, and that was the last time I played soccer. I went into the rugby league dressing rooms at the same venue the following Tuesday and played for Kippax under-19s, and we just kicked on from there. And Castleford scouts sort of got involved fairly quickly. I think I played about 6 or 8 games, and they put me on a contract, signed me on, and I finished that season in amateur football and resumed the 1967 season. 67 season, yeah, with Castleford.
And it wasn't long before you had possibly your greatest moment as a Castleford player in the '69 Challenge Cup final at Wembley when you were awarded the Lance Todd Trophy.
Things happened pretty quickly, you're right. The first season, 68-69 season, we played Salford at Wembley, and I was guided a lot by Alan. He led me in those early days, and I was full of energy and you know, fortunate enough to play with such a good side when the Lance Todd.
Well, you backed up that year's success with the 1970 Challenge Cup final win as well, and that got you international recognition and played a major part in your career, international rugby league. You got picked on the 1970s Ashes tour. It must have been a special moment for you.
Yeah, look, once again, I think that the key issue here is that I was fortunate enough to play with a lot of great players, and Frank Myler, Cliff Watson, Roger Millward, Alan Hardesty, you know, the wings, John Atkinson, Smith, Hines, Sin Hines, you know, they were super players, and we we lost the first test at Lang Park. We gave a lot more than we received physically. It was a very a lot of contact in the game.
You described it as a bit of a bloodbath. How tough did it get, Malcolm?
Well, you know, I mean, international games, as you know, Brian, there's nothing given, nothing asked, and you know, and in those days the game was a lot more physical. Referees didn't protect you like they do in the modern game, and there was a fair few people after the game knew they'd been in a rugby league game. It looked like they'd been boxing, you know. They'd broken noses and cuts, and we gave a good account of ourselves, but lost the game, and we'd a lot to back up in the second test, which we did, and the third test we beat them convincingly.
You were a member then of the last team to win the Ashes. You wouldn't have thought then that it would be 40 years with Great Britain still awaiting an Ashes win. How significant was that victory in your career when you look back on it, winning an Ashes in Australia?
It's a shame that we haven't been able to repeat that, and you know, all those years ago. We've been very close in the past, but it was a significant part of my career. Something, you know, your career's on it's just on building blocks, and you know, to beat Australia gives you that much bit more confidence, you know, in your ability. And we came back to England that year. We toured in May, came back in August, played the World Cup in September, and we lost. We beat Australia in the World Cup in the first game, and then we played them in the final and actually lost the game. But I was then back in Australia, January 1971, playing with Manly. Did
you find it a step up, Malcolm, or did you think you were able for that level of rugby league straight away?
No, I thought I was pretty fit at the time, but Arco, Ken Arthurson, who looked after me like a godfather, really, the 5 years I was there, he soon after I arrived, they used to go running every morning around the waterfronts there, and Arco's probably 20 years older than I am, so he would have been in his mid-40s then. And on occasions, in the early part of me joining them, they had to wait for me, and I assumed I was pretty fit, but I had to get a lot fitter. The intensity of the game was a little bit higher. My expectations of myself was high, so you know, we met what we had to.
Well, it wasn't too long before you got up to speed, and you were part of that famous Manly grand final victory in 1972, and again then in 1973. These are special times as a player. You do it at Castleford, back-to-back Challenge Cup wins, and then you go to Manly on the other side of the world, and you manage to get back-to-back grand final wins.
Yeah, once again, it was down to the fact that I was fortunate to be a member of such a great side. I was proud to wear the maroon and white, and you know, Bowes, Bob Fulton, John O'Neill, Graham Eadie, Terry Randall, Ken Irvine, the late Ken Irvine, great players, and we knocked the Roosters off in the 72 grand final, which was the first time ever for the Manly club, and then we backed up the next year against Cronulla, which was a bit of a bloodbath again.
You decided to finish up at Manly and come back over here and straight back to your beloved Castleford. And you took up a player-coach's role. When did the time come when you thought, that's enough playing-wise for Malcolm Reilly, it's time to focus on the coaching?
I think the player-coach was an ideal transition for me because I was able to have an input on the field, which was great in those days. I'm not sure whether it would work now. I don't think it probably would. But it certainly did in those days, and I enjoyed it. We had a lot of success. I was player coach and captain for a number of years, and I gave someone else the captaincy, so even if I got it wrong, it was their fault.
You always need a fall guy.
Yeah, and I packed in playing about 85. I had a game in 85, and not surprisingly, 86, when I'd stopped playing, we won the Challenge Cup. Whether or not that says my coaching had improved, or they played better on the field without me.
Well, there always comes a time, Malcolm, when you got to give it away on the field. But you were able to develop a wonderful coaching career after that. When in your long and illustrious playing career did you decide that maybe coaching is something for you? Because it's certainly not for every player.
No, it's not. But I I naturally went into the organisational skills of directing teams around the park, a little bit like an halfback does in the modern game, just leading teams around. And I played a big role at Manly doing exactly that. I'd followed Alan. Alan used to lead me around the park at Castleford, and I played with Roger Millward a lot, and you know, you just pick up a lot of positive things off them, and I sort of incorporated that into my game, along with being able to utilise my kicking skills, because I played a lot of soccer. But yeah, basically, yeah, I just naturally just went to coaching like a duck to water.
Well, we'll hear more about your coaching career after the break. Join us then when we'll discuss coaching the Knights and coaching your country. Welcome back to Super League Supermen and my special guest, Malcolm Reilly. Malcolm, we talked about your playing career and your move from player into coach. You left Castleford and you moved on to Halifax and started to establish yourself as a first-team coach. But there was a calling. You decided to take your coaching skills and move to the other side of the world. Can you tell me how the move to the Knights came about? Well,
at the time I was coaching Halifax in Great Britain and thoroughly enjoying what I was doing. You know, Halifax had a great board of directors and they gave me full support, and it was going to be a project over probably 3 or 4 years. But I bumped into John Schuster's manager whilst he was over visiting, and suggested that maybe I would consider coaching in Australia. And it's been a long-term ambition of mine, and I wouldn't feel as if I'd, you know, really succeeded in coaching without coaching at the very top level in Australia. And I agreed terms, and I put my resignation in, you know, with the Great Britain job, which I really didn't, you know, I just loved it, but I just knew there was a challenge out there. Just like in 1971 when I had to go out as a player, I was hungry and thirsty for a little bit more action.
And like in 1971, did you feel you needed to step up again when you went out to coach in Australia? Did you have the same nerves?
I did. I was very apprehensive, and I was amazed with the quality of the players that I took on. You know, people like Andrew Johnson, Matthew, and Paul Harrigan, and some of the outside backs, Adam Muir, Mark Glanville, Robbie O'Davis. There was currently at that stage 2 internationals, and after the first year, when Super League blew up, we finished it with 6 internationals in the Newcastle side. And I sort of empowered the players because I wasn't an Australian guy. I said, look, this is not my team, you know. A lot of coaches tend to talk down, and, you know, I'm not discriminating at all, but David Waite was sort of a school teacher approach, where I asked them questions and reassured them in relation to their confidence, and they just grew in stature and started playing a brand of football that the town had never seen for a long time.
Now, whether it was conscious or subconsciously, you have an intimidating presence. And I mean that in a positive sense. And when I read about some of the Newcastle players' reflections on your first day as a coach, they were running around the Broadmeadow racetrack, and they said at the finishing line, and they were training, they said, as hard as they've ever trained, was this large, imposing figure with sunglasses on, staring at them, walked away halfway through the session, and the next day sent letters to every one of the players saying unless they upped their ante, they were out.
Brian, I did that, yeah, because I knew... I knew the level of their fitness, and I knew what I could do, and I expected a lot better of professional footballers, even though I was well into my 40s. So I said, look, that's not going to win us a competition. We aren't going to get any better until, you know, we become a little bit more fitter. As you know, personal expectations and pride mean a lot in rugby league, and that's what I wanted to get through the message. So I did exactly that. I sent them a personal letter saying that it wasn't good enough, the standard of fitness that I'd, you know, witnessed, and they've got to up the ante.
And that continued throughout your period at the Knights. Whenever there was a challenge set in the gym, be it on the rower or be on the bike, you always put your hand up.
Yeah, I must admit, I am a little bit competitive.
Well, it worked wonders. Talk to me about 1997. We had the Super League war, but you still had a job to do at Newcastle. They had never won a premiership in their short existence, and you drove them all the way that year. Yeah,
it was on the back of some superb team performances, and really a gritty performance from one Andrew Johns. He broke 3 ribs in the semi-final against North Sydney, right at the end of the game, and backed up the following week in the grand final. And he had injections. Painkillers injection before the game and at half time, and he was travelling okay. But when he came up at half time, they re-injected him, and I was watching this procedure, and I saw the doctor, and the needle went in pretty deep. Let me tell you, it was a huge needle too. And I thought, well, he knows what he's doing. And I went up to the stand, and he didn't come out, and apparently he'd punctured his lung in 2 places. So he's got 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung in 2 places. This is in the major semi. Doesn't take part in the second half of the game. Goes to hospital the following Thursday, inflates the lung, still got 3 broken ribs, and turns out to play in the grand final.
Set up a winning try.
Set up a winning try. He was coming off at one stage. He just said to Mark Wright, the trainer, or Mark got on the headphones to me and just said, look, he's gone, he can't do any more, he's in loads of pain. I said, just tell him to turn around. He said, because we can't win this game without him. And he just swung round, went back out to play, and the rest's history. He made a break in the last 6 seconds or 20 seconds of the game, and Dan Albert scored a try with 6 seconds left remaining on the clock, which was just, you know, fantastic. It was. You couldn't have written a script to do that, but I mean, what a gutsy performance from the kid.
You played for your country with distinction, Malcolm, and moved into coaching, and the opportunity arose to coach your country, something you were never going to turn down.
No, I was just thrilled to be asked to do the job, and once again, you know, we were pretty successful. We came very close. I think in 1990 at Old Trafford, we won the first test at Wembley, and then we lost at Ellen Road and went to Old Trafford. And at full time, I think it was 16 or 12 apiece or 16 apiece. I know he finished up losing in injury time, 2 minutes into injury time, by a Ricky Stewart try, which he threw outrageous dummy, and Mal Meninga scored, you know, and that was the end of it. But, you know, I look back and have nightmares over it. We should have won that game.
So close in the Ashes. I think you're well placed to talk to us about the situation in international rugby. I want to ask you a few different things. First and foremost, I'd like you to tell me where you think Great Britain or England is at the moment.
I've not seen a lot of games on TV, but what I've seen, the intensity is far less than it is in Australia. And although it's entertaining and there's tries being scored, the defence is pathetic. And, you know, they're not going to improve internationally until, you know, we stop seeing this 56-10 or 62, you know, 12. They've got to get a bit of pride back into defence and the intensity in the game. Otherwise, internationally, you know, you just won't be able to compete. It is the competition that's at fault. You know, whether there's sufficient quality players in it, I'm not sure. Obviously, there isn't. But, you know, the New Zealand players that have played in the comp in Australia have adjusted, and now they're an international force, and we're just lagging behind because our competition over here is just not as intense or defensively capable of meeting the criteria.
What sort of a person do you think it takes to coach an international team? What's your take on it?
Oh, look, I think a lot of it's motivation and confidence to be able to instill a simple game plan with quality players, which at international level you would hope to have. Just reassuring the players they're able and confident enough to go out there and do the business together. And that's something we did develop. When we went out there in '88, when I first took on the Great Britain job, we lost the first 2 tests. The first one was at Lang Park, I think it may have been. But we came back and won 26-12 in the 3rd test, and all of a sudden the guys sort of took on board a huge dose of confidence and self-belief, and then we backed it up when Australia came over the following year and beat them at Wembley. So all of a sudden we've got back-to-back successes against Australia in test matches, unfortunately not in the same test series, but yeah, the players, I just loved the involvement with them.
With all this wealth of knowledge that you have and all this experience, Malcolm, do you still feel that you can contribute to our game?
Look, I obviously do, you know, but I don't want to get involved 24/7. And, you know, a lot of clubs probably, because I've been international coach and coached at the highest level, I don't know whether they'd feel intimidated if I was trying to help them out. You know, they'd probably feel threatened. But I do love the game. I like talking. I like the involvement with players. But I don't want to get I know what it's like, and I just don't. There's plenty of things I can be doing rather than worrying about complex personalities and looking after players 24/7.
But at the international level, if there was a slot found for you to come in and assist with the motivation, as you say, and maybe share some of your experiences, you'd be willing to accept something like that, or at least look at it?
Absolutely, Brian. Yeah, I think you know, one of the aspects I've been able to transfer to players is the mental toughness side of the game, and those expectations of, you know, pride and passion.
Well, Malcolm, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, a true legend of the game, somebody I'm delighted to meet face to face for the first time. Wish you all the best, and I hope we do see you involved in rugby league again. Thank you very much for coming on Super League Supermen.